to venture into business in this COVID period and even post COVID. But the challenge remains how to raise funds for your startup. We have with us today one person who has raised funds for his startup, who has won several awards, and who is leading a tech startup in Nigeria. And this is no other person than Chidi Nwaogu, the CEO of Publisher. I'm sure that you will learn a lot from Chidi. So just sit back and relax as we bring on Chidi Nwaogu. Chidi, you're welcome to OD Live session.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so hello everybody. I'm Chidi Nwaogu and I'm co-founder and CEO of Publish here. I'm a serial tech entrepreneur. That means that I create growth to profitability tech ventures and then I sell them to international corporations that can breathe more fresh, air into them. I've done that with two startups and currently running my third startup, which is Publish here. It's a digital platform for African creatives to earn a living as full-time creatives. I'm excited to be here to talk to you guys about startup fundraising or fundraising for your startup. Um, I'm believing that if you're watching this or you're listening to my voice, that means that you're an entrepreneur and you run a startup company and you're trying to raise funding. Maybe it's seed funding, maybe it's post seed funding, like maybe Series A or Series B, whatever it is. You're trying to raise the next round or the first round. And today I'll be talking to you about tips, for fundraising. I'll be talking to you about the different ways to fundraise for your startup. I'll be talking to you about the different types of startup investments, how to draft investment pitch deck, and yeah, typically that. So let's first start with the tips for fundraising. So the question is there a hack to fundraising? Is there a way to easily raise fund? And the answer is yes. There is a way to really easily raise fund, and I'll be talking to you about how these ways. The first way is to build relationships. So I always say that relationship building is crucial. That means that I know that it'll be difficult for introverts to actually relate to this because they love their space. They love to do things indoor. They like, they like walking behind the computer or they like sitting behind the device. And so the question is, how am I going to build relationships? How am I going to, go out and network with other individuals? But, why I say relationship building is really important is because you might not know the investor, personally, the investor that you want to invest in your startup. You might not know the investor personally. But if you go out, you put yourself out there, you go to events, you network, you see someone, you smile, you listen to what they do, and you just introduce what you do, there's a very huge chance that you end up knowing somebody that knows that investor. And most investors, when you reach out to them to, maybe like you send an email to them to get requesting if they can have a meeting with you to sit down and talk about your business and the prospect of investing in it, they usually try and do what they call due diligence. So they like trying to find out, about your startup from third party, from people who don't, that people that they know. And if there's a huge chance that they speak to a friend and say, oh, have you heard about this startup? And I say, yeah, I met the person, the founder, one of the founders at this event, and the founder was amazing. He was well cultured. He was brilliant. He spoke. He was an amazing person. There's a huge chance that you are going to get that investment because most investors don't invest in just the idea or the product or the revenue. They invest in the person, the people behind the business, because they know that there's at some point you might have to pivot if things don't work out well. You might have to iterate a couple of times. But if they believe in the team behind the business, they are going to put their money into it. So as an entrepreneur, you want to raise funds, it's good to put yourself out there. Try and network as much as possible. Try and meet people as much as possible. Talk to people about what you do. You should have a 5 minute pitch. You should have a 10-minute pitch. You should have a 3-minute pitch, even a 1 minute or 14-word pitch about your business. So that you can the 14-word pitch is an excellent way to speak to somebody quickly about what you do and why you're doing it and why you're excellent and why what you're doing is excellent. Because when you stand in front of someone to tell, like, you just meet, hello, how you doing, and you're trying to introduce your business, you don't have to, if you spend in 5 minutes explaining your business to them, there's a very huge chance that they're going to tune out. So if you can just explain what you do in 14 words adequately and completely, there's a huge chance that you buy their attention. So you have to also practice your pitch. So the first tip for investing to raise fund is build network, and do not don't underestimate the power of relationship building. The second one is that you should understand that the venture capital community is really small. And when I say it's really small, almost every investor know themselves. Like, most investors invest in businesses after a friend of theirs and that is outside as an investor also invested in the business, and because they trust the decision of their other investor friend. And so once that person puts their money into your business, there's a huge chance that they are going to put their own money into it too. And so I would tell you not to burn bridges. When I say don't burn bridges, do not leave any investor thinking negative about about you as a person. So do not burn bridges. Be nice, be polite when you're speaking to to investors. If they say no, that you're doing something that is not worthwhile, don't take it personal. I've seen cases where people became verbal with investors because the investor said, you guys are not doing anything sensible, and I'm not interested in investing. And the person became very verbal, and then they part ways with the investor in a very, very bad situation. And then in the future, they were trying to raise money from another investor who was so interested in what they were doing, but then eventually the other investor spoke to this other investor and said, there's this new guys that I want to put my money in there, the next big thing. I think you put your money into it. He said, and what's the name of the startup? Immediately he mentioned the name of the startup. He was like, please don't put your money into these guys. These guys are terrible. They don't speak properly. They're impolite. They're arrogant. And that was how everything all went down the drain. So you don't want a bad relationship or experience with an investor to come and hunt you, after, several times later, several years or months, years later, especially when you're trying to raise fund, or you're very close at raising fund, just because of you did something terrible or something that was not, that was questionable, in the past. So just understand that the venture capital community is small, and please don't burn bridges. The third one is that you should build passion. Build passion in your pitches. When you're talking to someone about what you do, many people don't really listen to you or your words that much. They don't even remember what you said, but what they always remember is the way you made them feel when you were speaking about your business. So, for example, if you say we identified this problem and then we offered a solution to it. You see, you say you offer a solution. You didn't make it. There was no passion in it. But if you said we discovered this problem and we offered the amazing or the perfect solution. Now you that's confidence. That's passion. That's what you're doing. What you're doing is worthwhile because you called it the perfect. Now there's a difference between A and D. D means it's the only, and then A means maybe one of of those out there. So when you speak into investors about your business, use the right words, that shows confidence that you know what you're doing, and use facts. Don't use cooked up data that you cooked up in your head. Use facts. You're trying to state a problem that exists. You use facts. You're trying to explain to them how big your market is. You use facts. You should use facts like data that is available and is verifiable. So, and but no matter what you do or no matter what you say, written or verbally, make sure that they can see that passion in what you're doing. They can see that passion, in your voice. They know, from the words you use that you are in this for the long run, that you're not leaving this business, that no matter what, you are in this business. That passion, if they can sense that passion in your words, there's a very huge chance that they're going to invest in you. And the fourth one is that you should try and follow up. So it's even in business. For example, you reach out to a customer and tell the customer, this is my business, this is what we offer you. There's a very huge chance that the first email or the first encounter with the customer will not convert. You need to keep, putting your product in their faces, right? Before it eventually converts, That's how investors are. You need to constantly remind them about that you exist. It might remind them that your startup, is there. Like in case they forget it, remind them. You can do like 3 follow-ups, and don't do 3 follow-ups in 3 days. That's just too much, within a short period of time. So you can do 3 follow-ups within 3 months. And make sure that when you're writing to them, a new follow-up email, make sure that you've achieved something new, something impressive, something amazing that you'd like to share with them, so that they can see progress. So the first email you wrote to them, you had your product already launched in the market, and you're already getting your your early customers. The second email, you explain to them, oh, we've crossed our 100 customer mark, and we've made a certain amount of revenue, and we're though we've not broken even, we are very close to breaking even. The third email is, hey, we just signed a partnership with one of the biggest stakeholder in the industry, and this is what it's going to do to our business. And then the fourth one is, oh, remember the partnership we spoke to you about? Okay, this is the progress so far. We've had 1,000 customers so far. We've broken even, and now we're pursuing the chances of becoming profitable. This kind of things makes them understand that these guys are they're serious about their business. And because I know of a friend that reached out to an investor, a certain investor, 5 times within 2 years. And then it was the fifth email that the investor wrote back and said, I think I love your journey so far. I would like to be part of this. So, you should understand, you should, don't, when you send the first email and they're silent, don't think they didn't read it. Most of them read it. Don't think that they don't like what you're doing. They like it. But, you're not the first email that they receive, telling them that, they are doing something amazing. And you're not the first person pitching that same idea. So you'll be surprised that you're pitching an idea that they've heard before. I remember sometime last month, some guys were pitching to Color. Color, is like the founder of Ventures Platform Foundation, one of the biggest accelerators in Nigeria. And so they were pitching to him about off-campus student housing, a platform for off-campus student housing. And funny is that Color, has invested in a startup that does just exactly the same thing. And so he was excited to listen to them. And once they were done with the pitch, he asked them a question. He said, I have invested in a startup that does just this exact same thing, and I lost money, investing in this startup. Can your pitch didn't tell me anything different from what the guy told me, in the past. So can you tell me something that you're doing differently that he did, differently, from what he did, and how you're a better bet, and I wouldn't lose my money investing in you just the way I lost my money investing in them. So it's that's so like I'm trying to explain to you, you're not the first person pitching the same idea. So you have to be like you have to show that uniqueness. Is it in the team? Is it in your market strategy? What makes you a better bet? And if they don't buy into the dream the first time, follow up. Be optimistic and follow up. And eventually, maybe even the fifth email, they might respond to you. Another one is that you should pre-qualify your investors. Investors are not the only people that do background check on you, like maybe go do some due diligence. You as an entrepreneur, you should do some background check on your investors before you reach out to them. Don't reach out to every investor that you hear of or you know about. It's sometimes when these investors read an email from an entrepreneur, and they know if the entrepreneur has done their homework. They know. And if you've not done your homework, that's a complete turn off to them. That shows that you're ill prepared, and that means that you're not even prepared for the journey ahead as an entrepreneur. So for example, before you reach out to an investor, you should know one of these 3 things. One is that, are they interested in the sector that you are operating in? Have they invested in a startup in your sector? And how was the turnout for them? If the turnout was huge for them, there's a very huge chance that they are going to invest in you too. And the second one is that you have to know how much check do they cut? How much investment check do they cut? What's their maximum investment check cut? What's their minimum investment check cut? Then no, this is my minimum investment requirement. This is how much I want. I want $500,000. Can they offer it, or is the $500,000 too small for them to offer? Are they more? Are they investing in $1 million investment, criteria, or are they, or is the $500,000 too big because they're investing in 25,000 to 100,000, and thousand in early stage startups? You need to know these things before you reach out to them. That will make them know that this guy did his homework or this woman did her homework. Now, the sixth one is that you should not run your business like raising fund is the main objective or is everything to you. And we know, you would know when it seems like raising fund is everything to you, because all you're thinking about is raising fund. You're not thinking about how to acquire the new customer. You're not thinking about how to reduce your churn rate. You're not thinking about your month-to-month growth rate. All you're thinking about is how you're going to get money from some investor and put it in your pocket. That's when you know that, okay, now raising capital is my main objective as a business. And employees working for such companies don't like it, because it shows that the entrepreneurs, the founders, are not excited about this business. The founders are not thinking about the long term. They just want to raise money, maybe eventually even go into thin air. So do not be this one of those entrepreneurs that raising capital is the main or the center objective of their business. Please don't do that. Then the seventh one is that focus. And as an entrepreneur, running a startup business, focus. When I say focus, I mean know where you want to go to. You currently know where you are, but you know the big picture. You have the big picture in your head. You know what you want to become. And because once you're speaking to an investor, they want to understand how big this startup can get. Maybe you started off as like Facebook started off as a social network for students, but eventually became opened up, became a social networking platform for everybody. Now Facebook is also used as a business tool and advertising. It's like Facebook is eventually used for almost everything: charting, staying in touch, sharing multimedia, news, everything. Facebook is even used for pools. So I'm sure that Mark knew exactly where he was going to, how big Facebook will eventually get. And so that's what you should do as an entrepreneur. You know that you're starting really small, and you know that your MVP is not your final product, but you know eventually how big you can get and how big this thing will become. Where if you're going to expand to newer markets or newer verticals, and when you're going to do that, you should have all these things set. Because when you're reaching to an investor and you say, okay, this is what we are right now, but in the next 2 years, this is what we are going to become, and these are the steps we're going to do. We're going to take to get there. This is our part. This is how we're going to become profitable. This is the detailed plan on how we're going to break even, become profitable, maybe even exit the startup by getting acquired by a bigger organization, and that way the investor gets the money back. Or we are going to exit maybe by an IPO, and then what exactly what's the big plan? What's the big idea? What's the big picture? How big can this get? You need to understand, let them know that you have a focus, you have a vision about, about how big this can get, and you're not just thinking small term. Now, you should build your startup like you're writing a novel. You should build your startup like you're writing a movie. Like, for example, every good writer, when the writer is writing a book, they already know the end of the story. They know the end of the novel, but they know the beginning of how the novel will begin, how the novel will end. The question is, what's the plot? How will it get from here to here? So that's how you should also run your startup company. The beginning, that's where you are right now. You want the end. Maybe you want to go for an IPO. You want to get acquired by some big well-established company in the same industry. But the question is, how will that story be told? How will you get from here to here? That's what you should be asking, and you should write the journey like you're writing a novel. This is what we are going to do, and to get here. In case it doesn't work, these are the other plans we're going to take. This is what we're going to do. We're going to develop the product this way. We're going to increase our business models this way. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We expand to a new market today. We're going to expand to a new vertical tomorrow. How exactly? You need to write it like a story, and then this more forms like a roadmap. Because once you show an investor that this is your story, Even if, like, okay, this is where we are today. This is where we're going to be in the next, in the nearest future. This is how we plan to do it. Write like a storybook. And then, they understand that, okay, obviously this person knows, the end point of, of all this thing. And they have an idea of how they want to get it. Although it might not work the same way you thought about it. Sometimes it can even work better. Sometimes it might not work, better at all. Sometimes it might work so badly that you would have to pivot a couple of times. But it shows that you have that dedication, determination to see it through. If you can write the story even when, even before it has happened. So build your company like you're writing a story, or you're writing a novel, or you're writing a screenplay for a movie. That's how you should also, you build your company. And then the ninth one is that you should decide when you're trying to pitch to an investor if you want to sell metrics or you want to sell the vision. Now let me explain to you what selling vision and selling metrics look like. Most late stage startups or more mature stage startups sell metrics. And when you sell metrics, you're selling to them your data, what you've done. Like, for example, this is the cost we acquire a customer. This is how much the customer gives us during their entire lifetime with us. These are our month-to-month growth rates. This is our monthly recurring revenue. These are our annual recurring revenue. These are our churn rate. These are our burn rate. These are our run rate. This is how you have now. You're now using data metrics. You're now using structured metrics. These are things that you now know. And now when your investor can tell a lot about your business by looking at your metrics, your numbers. So some investors have invested in businesses by just looking at the metrics. Oh, this metrics is amazing. The month growth rate is as high as 36%. The churn rate is as low as 3%. Stuff like that. They're like, okay, I think this is what I want. This is the kind of business I want to jump upon. Or get in bed with. But most early stage startup or ideal stage startup sell vision because they don't have metrics at that moment. So what you sell is to them is that, okay, this is where we are right now. We're going to build the product maybe in the next 2 months. We're going to do some alpha testing, some beta testing. We're going to launch to the public. We're going to you just tell them the story, what you see in the future, of your company, because it has not happened. So you don't have any concrete metric. Because if you're telling them, okay, these are CAC, but you've not acquired a single customer. So how do you know the cost, to acquire a customer? Or is this a speculative data? Are you extrapolating based on maybe what is already in the market? Stuff like that. So you should choose when you're talking to an investor if you want to sell metrics or you want to sell vision. And one important way to show them that to make an investor want to invest in your business is by showing them how a team of 2 or 3, maybe that's your team, right, can go against a team of 200 or 300, maybe a more established player in the same field, because they're like, okay, you guys are only just 3 people in this business, and do you know that your competition has 300 people? How do you intend to go against these guys? You have to give them a very clear path in which you intend to do that. Once you can convince them by giving them a detailed path, there's a very huge chance they're going to invest in you. And the last one, the 10th one, is that you should practice your pitch over and over again. Someone should be able to wake you up and you can, literally tell them about your business within 1 minute. Like, someone should be able to wake you up and say, hello, can you tell me about your business? And you tell them fluently what your business is. Because you don't know, as an entrepreneur, who you're going to meet next. You might want to have, you've always wanted to have a time with Dangote, and then fortunately, rather, you got into an elevator, and who did you see there? That was just some Dangote, and you're like, what? And then you're given 1 minute from the floor to the ground floor to speak to him before he gets off the the elevator. What are you going to say? How are you going to pitch your business? If you don't know what you can say, there's a very huge chance that you don't know your business well enough. For example, I'll give you a 1 minute pitch about my business, and maybe it will give you an idea on what you can do, on how you can, pitch your own business, maybe to somebody, in case maybe you don't have a 1 minute pitch or a 2 minute pitch. Like, for example, I can give you a 1 minute pitch, I can give you a 2 minute pitch, I can give you a 3 minute, I can give you a 7, I can give you a 10 minutes, depending on the time I have to speak to you. And the more time I have to speak to you, the more information I add to the pitch. But I'll just give you a brief idea on what a 1 minute pitch look like. So I can say, hello, I'm Chidi Nwaogu, and I'm co-founder and CEO of Publishare. It's a digital platform that helps independent and underserved African creatives from low-income communities to earn above the minimum wage and to live above the poverty line from the sales of their creative works. We achieve this by helping them to distribute, to protect, promote, and monetize their creative works across over 400 well-established partner stores worldwide at no charge with just a single click. Every day we discover local African talent and we give them a platform to truly do what they love doing the most, which is to create, while we handle the tedious business of transforming that creativity into wealth for them. So far, we've helped nearly 5,000 African creatives earn over $200,000 in revenue, thanks to our partnership with the International Publishers Association and the International Publishing Distribution Association. Join us as we promote the beautiful culture and the heritage of the African people to the rest of the world, one content at a time. Thank you. Simple. So you should have that flow. That lets them know that, okay, this person knows his business. Obviously, he knows his business. And if you tell me to speak about my business in 5 minutes, then I would talk to you what an ideal target customer is. The reason why we started our business, the core problems we're solving, the real value we're adding to our customers, what our business model looks like, our traction so far, our plans for the future, and why we are the right team to actually execute this. Simple as that. So I hope maybe these tips can in some way help you to to raise your funds much quicker. So I'll be speaking to you now about the 7 ways in which you can fundraise for your startup. So the first one is one that I really love the most, which is bootstrapping. A lot of entrepreneurs don't like bootstrapping, but I love bootstrapping, because the reason why I love bootstrapping is that I love challenges. I love doing things that challenges me. And my 2 startups that got acquired by American corporations were both bootstrapped, and we became profitable. With them, we got millions of customers, and then we got acquired. So it's possible. No, bootstrapping is very amazing. That is because you're working with no pressure. You're not using anybody's money. You're using your own personal money, maybe, or your personal savings. So you're working with no pressure, and you can determine 100% what direction you want your business to go. How fast you want it to go. If maybe you want to start monetizing right now, you want to wait a little bit, for certain things to happen before you start monetizing your users. You need to know all these things, right? So that's how bootstrapping work. Bootstrapping is your own personal fund, and there's a lot of opportunities or liberty that comes with it. However, it's difficult to do some certain things when you're bootstrapping, because you don't have you have very limited resources, very limited support, very limited capital. So it's some people always run away from this because they don't like challenges. Another way to raise fund is through crowdfunding. By maybe using Kickstarter or GoFundMe to tell people to donate for your course, because you're trying to achieve something. An excellent startup that did this in Nigeria was Okada Books. I remember, I think sometime, I think maybe like about 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but something there about that time. They did a Kickstarter campaign for $20,000 because the CEO at that moment, or Okechukwu Ofili, he was trying to create a new platform for Okada Books, and he needed $20,000, for the product development. And so he reached out to his readers, his users to help, to fundraise. And I think he did it because they eventually had a new platform. So that's an excellent way you can actually raise capital by reaching out to your users and say, oh, we are trying to do this for you guys. Can you help donate for us? So we can achieve this for you better. So another way to fundraise, which is the third way, is a true loan, interest based loan. You can meet any financial institution and say, hey, okay, I have this collateral. Can you loan me this amount of money for maybe I'll give you, I'll pay in 10% interest maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, or maybe this is our statistics. This is what we're doing. I believe our businesses has a very huge chance of growing or exponentially. So I think you guys you shouldn't be scared to give me a loan, because I'm going to pay you back. Whatever works for you. Loan is when you have to pay back the money in a certain period of time, maybe with or without interest. But another way to raise capital is through grants. Grants are like loans, but you don't pay back. So typically it's not like loans. So it's when they give you money, but you don't have to pay back. And maybe the only what might demand from you is a detailed report later on how you spent the fund and how the result, what the result was like, and how how the impact was like. Maybe they want that detailed report, mostly as a way to raise more grant money for other entrepreneurs. So a few people do this, like Tony Elumelu Foundation does grant. Idle Foundation also does grant. I think theirs is €3,000, while Tony Elumelu is $5,000. So there's still a couple of people who give out grants, and so you can explore the ways to get capital through grants. Another way to get fund is through angel investors. By getting by angel investors are like they are not venture capitalists. They are more like individuals that have a couple of money, have a couple of experience, and they're looking for how to invest in the next big thing. And so most of them sometimes raise invest in the company. Sometimes they meet their friends to raise more money to invest in the company. And a good example of an angel investor is Tom Davids. He's a veteran in the ecosystem. So they just they invest in businesses more as not as a company, but as more as an individual and not as a firm. And that is the contrast. And most angel investors, can invest in early stage startups, early stage startups, because they take a lot of risk. And that's why they call them angels, because it's what they're doing is it's pretty aggressive. And another way to raise startup capital is through venture venture capital firms. These ones are more structured, and they don't they don't invest in any kind of startup. They invest with startups that have a track record, startups that have MVP, post revenue startups. They invest with they want to see metrics because they want a sure bet that they are going to get the money back. So that is the difference between them and angel investors. Now, I'll speak to you about the different types of startup investments. Uh, the different types of startup investments includes equity investments and convertible debts and convertible equity. I'll explain to you what those are very briefly, and maybe you can go read up on it, and I'll try and give as much examples to make it much very practical for you. So equity investments is very familiar. A lot of people are familiar with that, and it's mostly typical in late stage startups. Startups that have a known evaluation, and so if I'm putting $200,000 into this business, this is the equity I want from them. So it's just when you put money into a startup for a share, or stock in the business. For example, you can say, okay, I'm going to put $200,000 into your business for 20% of your company. That means that the company is evaluated at $1 million dollars. So that's equity investments. Typically, they give you investment money for sharing your company, mostly in voting rights and in share of money or dividends and stuff. And but most of these people, they usually go for preferred shares and not common shares. So I'll tell you the difference between preferred and common shares. Most common shares are mostly with founders. So what the founder gets is common share. What most of the investors go for is preferred shares. And preferred shares, they easily cash out before the common shares. So when I say the easy cash out, means that, for example, if in a case they gave you $200,000 and for 20% in your company, and that put your valuation at $1 million, but at some point things went bad, and then you sold for $300,000. They're not going to take 300. They're not going to take 20% of $300,000. They will take their $200,000 from $300,000 that you got, and that leaves you with little or nothing. That means that they have preferred shares. They are going to first cash out, before you in a case of bankruptcy or in case of liquidation that was way below the valuation of the company. So that's what So that's what preferred shares is. You're going to see it mostly in the contract you're going to sign. It's always just going to be there laying in front of you. You're going to see it so clearly, and when this usually when you see you see an investment contract, I would advise that you give it to a lawyer to proofread and let you know if you're taking the right path. Convertible debt. Convertible debts, example of them is convertible notes. So they are they're a type of convertible security that are structured more like a loan, and they're set up more, they're structured like a loan, and set up in such a way that they can convert into equity at a much later stage. So I'll give you an example. Peter Thiel invested $500,000 into Facebook as convertible notes. So what he did was that I give you $500,000, but but I don't want shares yet right now. I want to, know how this thing gets, where this is going to before I determine what share, I want, So his money only converted, to shares when Facebook raised, Series A, or I think about $7 million. So then that's when he got 10.2% of the company. So that's how convertible debts are. They are structured more like a loan, and they're set up in such a way that they can convert from a loan to to equity at a later stage. And convertible equity are very, very similar to convertible debt, but so they have predefined parameters. An example of convertible equity is Y Combinator SAFE. SAFE means simple agreement for future equity. And another example is 500 startups KISS, keep it simple security. And convertible equity gives investors the opportunity to invest in a company without, even when the company has not yet firmly established their valuation. And so when the company is established their valuation, then the investment amount converts into equity, based on some predefined parameters, which is in the documents, such as the SAFE and the KISS documents. So that's typically the three types of ways in which startup investment come. The convertible debts and equity are mostly very, 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 very common with early stage startups and idea stage startups when you don't really know where this is going to. But the equity investment is very excellent and mostly common with post-revenue startups, especially when late stage startups that you already know how things are. They have proven business model, and they have metrics that that proves that this is a working business. So we're talking briefly to you about how to draft an investor pitch deck. An investor pitch deck is a pitch deck that it's not the kind of pitch deck that you use when you're pitching at competitions or when you are pitching to your customer. The investor pitch decks are the kind of pitch deck you use when you're speaking to an investor and you want him to give you money. So example is a typical investor pitch deck has the problem statement. The problem statement clearly states what the problem it is that you're solving. But when you're speaking to an investor and the pitch deck is in front of you, do not read what that problem is. You can try to explain to the investor that problem with a use case, maybe like a story. Explain to them a kind of scenario that, or a kind of situation in which the problem that you discovered exists. Oh, Mr. Something Something is a barber. He always looks for customers, and so this is what we're doing. Stuff. Explain. How journey that in which your customer experienced the problem and the factors that affect it, in a story. That way, it makes it clearer to them, because some of them don't even know your business, they don't know your industry, they don't understand what you're saying. And so, if you put your problem, if you can define your problem, establish your problem with a story, it's an excellent way to to get their interest. Then you explain to them the solution that you're offering, the value of solution is, what value you're giving to the customer, and why this value, nobody can replicate it. Nobody can, create the value just anyhow, and nobody can just look at it and create it. You're going to explain to them the advantage you have that makes, the value you're offering not easily duplicated. Then the next one, you can explain to them who your target customer is, what their age, their age range, their profession, their literacy skills. Like, you should let them know that what an ideal customer looks like. You know every single thing about the customer, even what their financial capacity is. That way, how to price the product, how their literacy skills. That way, the kind of technology to give, to use to solve their problem, stuff like that. You also need to explain to them, you know, how you intend to enter the market, dominate the market, and exit the market. Maybe in the case, maybe you want to go for an IP or get acquired. You have to let them know what's the journey like. Or how big is the market? Is the market growing? But then, not if the market is only growing. Is the market growing at an accelerating rate? So, sometimes the market can be growing, but it's decelerating. Let me give an example. So maybe a market grew by 40% from 2010 to 2015. And from 2015 to 2020, it grew by 30%. The market is growing really, yeah, but it's decelerating. That means eventually it's going to grow by 5%, 2%, 0.5%, and eventually stop growing and start dying. I mean, so you get the idea. So investors want to know, how has the past growth rate looked like, and has it been growing faster? I want to know if the expansion is faster. So that's what you have to explain to them, that okay, this is a growing market, and these are the factors that are making it grow, and this is why this industry will continue to keep growing and will never collapse or come to a crunch. You need to explain this to them. You also have to explain to them your competitive advantage. What you do better than your competition, and how your competition cannot duplicate that advantage. Then last no then you need to show them your roadmap, product roadmap, business roadmap, product, how you will your product develop over a period of time, business roadmap, how will the business operations develop over a period of time. If you're an early stage startup, you need to show them the financial projection. Like, okay, this is the financial projection. This is what we think how we're going to make money in 2021. We're going to make $1 million from 1,000 or 10,000 businesses, and this is how we're going to do it. And this is how we're going to acquire a certain amount of customers, and that means that we're going to acquire this amount of customers every day. This is how we're going to acquire the customers, and then this is how much we're going to make from the customers. And this, you just explain to them how how your finances will grow, and why you believe it's. Because this is not just extrapolation. You are using real data to prove to them how you're going to do this. They want to see that hockey stick, the way your revenue just grows, exponentially. But this is mostly for early stage startups. But if you are a later stage startup, what you can now explain to them is your unit economics, your CAC, which is the cost of acquiring the customer, your LT, which is the value or the money, the monetary value that the customer gives you during their time, which you maybe a year or two. What your monthly recurring revenue is like, what's your annual recurring revenue, how much do you make every year, what's the month-on growth rate, how are you growing, how's the revenue growing, how's the users growing, is it growing faster than before, is it growing as fast as the industry is growing, or is it growing faster than the industry is growing? What's your churn rate, how customers leaving your platform, what's your burn rate, how fast are you eating into the money in your account, what's your runway, how much, what's the expected lifetime of the business in the case where you don't make any revenue and you do not raise any fund. So if putting the amount of money in the bank, how long will it take you to burn through the entire money in the bank? That way they know, okay, if we don't give them money, they can stay for 5 months without raising money. But when you're trying to raise money, I would advise that you do not raise money when you need it. You should raise money when you want it. And an example of raising money when you want it is when maybe your runway is like 12 months or 6 months, 6 to 12 months. That means that you're not that desperate. You've still got time to raise money, and investors usually give you a better deal at that moment. But when you're desperate, and that's when you need the money, and your runway is like maybe a couple of weeks or a month, maybe 1 to 2 months, then they give you a really bad deal because they now know that you're desperate and you're really looking for money, and so they can just give you a small amount of money for big amount of shares. And I would like to end this by telling you that the best way to raise money is not from your what they call it. It's not from investors. The best way to raise money is from customers. Your customers have more money than investors have all put together. And I keep telling people that, try and make money from your customers from day one. They have more money than your investors will ever have. So if you can think about a way in which you can make your customers see the value in your product offering, and then invest their money into your business by paying for the product, then yes, uh, you that's the easiest way to raise money from your customers. And do not let anybody tell you that you must raise money from investors. Investors don't have so much money, and a good example of a customer of a business that raised money from their customers is DistroKid. DistroKid never, they're a music distribution platform. They never raised a single amount of money from from investors, and they reached revenue of over $1 billion. So you see, you can raise money from your customers without having to raise a single dime from investors, and you make billions or millions of dollars, as the case may be. Yeah. So the question, if there's any question, I would be eager to answer. It's 47 minutes past the time of.
Okay,
So
Chidi,
if there's any
thank you
question,
so
I'll
much.
be eager to answer.
Okay, great, great. Thank you so much for sharing all what you shared. We already have questions popping in from participants here. We have one question here, which I'll flash. I'll flash the questions on the screen, and you just attend to them as they come up, right? Okay, so there's this question.
How is the situation where an investor wants to know the amount? How is the situation where Yeah, so most investors always ask that question. Most investors always ask, the money I'm giving to you, what do you want to do it? What do you want to do with it, and how can it help you? You know, can it, if I give you $100,000, can it get you to a point where you don't need to raise future, fund, because you already got to a point where you've broken even, you're already profitable, and then you're now growing, you're a self-sustaining business. They want to know, yeah, how much, this money I'm giving to you, how long, how far will it take you? These are what plans do you have to do, to spend, what plans do you have to spend this money? And where would that take you? And wait, when you get to that point, would you need extra money to get to the next point? Or will you get to a point where you're self-sustaining to go on your own? Every investor wants to know what their money can do for you. And if you can, I think that's one of the best question, best questions you can answer to when an investor asks you, hey, I see in your raising terms that you are trying to raise $100,000 for 10%. If I give you $100,000, what would you do? And I think it should be in your pitch. It should be in your pitch. If you're telling them, maybe which is the last slide. Okay, we're raising $500,000, and we're willing to give 10%, for the $500,000 that we get. And this is what we intend to use the $500,000 to do. Maybe further product development, expansion to a new market, expansion into new verticals, breaking even, or becoming profitable, like or getting partnership with certain relevant stakeholders. You need to explain to them what your money can do for you. Yeah, it's a really important question. And if you don't get this right, there's a very huge chance that you're not getting the money. It's just like when you ask your parents for $500 for no reason. What would your parents ask you? What do you want to use it for? And you have to give them a right, answer, a sensible answer for them to give you the $500. It's the same way investors are. Hey, I want $100,000. The question is, what do you want to use it for? You have to give them a very clear answer that makes sense to them, and if not, or else they're not going to give you any money. So it's a very important question. And when you're trying to raise fund, you should know what you're raising the fund for. You should not just raise fund, but you're just raising fund. Like I said, do not build a business whose main objective is just raising fund, because that way you don't have any reason why you're raising fund, and you're just raising because you just want money. Nobody's going to give you money that way. So next question. The merits of using other people's money as fund your setup. So let's start with the merits. The merits of using other people's money to fund your startup is that they have a say in the direction of your business, because their money is in your business now. So they have a say in the direction of the business. You don't have the total say. You don't have the total. You're no longer the guy on the steering wheel. Everybody now has steering wheels, and then you can discover that you're trying to to keep right, and someone is trying to keep left. So you realize that sometimes you might end up building a successful business, but a business that you don't want, because it's a business that the vision of that you had as the founding vision you had as a founder is not what it's not the startup you're seeing right now. The startup you're seeing right now has money, has revenue. However, it's not what you really wanted. That's the demerit. You end up you might end up in a direction that you don't want, because you're not the only one that set the KPIs. You're not the ones that set the milestones. Your investors are involved in this process as well. So so that's one of the demerits of it. The merits about using somebody else's money to start a business is that you can easily, you have my money, because you use your own money, you use their own money. Then you can use maybe 10 people's money. You can I didn't say that during when during my speech. Another way in which you can raise money is from friends and family. And that's typically one of the best ways to raise money, because you can raise money from your mom. Your mom believes in you. Your mom believes in whatever you're doing, because you're her kid. She trusts you. If anybody that believes in you, it's your mom. And so there's not much pressure from your mom to start making revenue, because she's giving you time. She wants you to breathe. She wants you to take your time, and So one of the merits of using someone else's money is that you have more avenue to raise money. You have more you have more money now to do what you want to do, because though we understand that ideas vision is very important in a business, capital is very important too. And so the merits of using other people's money is that you get you have multiple streams of capital, and then you can easily do whatever you want to do. You can grow quickly, and you can move faster, scale quickly, and get into newer markets. Yeah. What are the inherits risks involved in getting a loan as an idea startup? Oh, as an idea startup, I wouldn't tell you to raise money from loans. Loans are very risky, because you have to pay back after a certain period of time with interest, and it's an idea. For crying out loud, it's an idea. So many things can go wrong, and in fact, anything that can go wrong can possibly go wrong. So if you if you want to you have only an idea, and you're in the ideation, you've not done the MVP, you've not put the product into market, you've not achieved product market fit, you've not you're not scaling, and you want to raise money from loan. That means you're I'm afraid you're a gambler, because gamblers are the kind of people that when you see something, you like you don't there's a very huge chance that something a different result shows up, but you always be betting that this result shows up. And that's the same thing raising fund through loans for an idea stage startup. That's a huge gamble. And there's loans are always high risk, because sometimes they can come take your collateral. Your collateral could be a land property. It could be an heirloom that has been in your family for a very long time, and you're really, 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 really sad to see that go. So I would advise you that do not use loan. Do not raise money. Raise startup capital through loans for an idea startup. Try and get to a point where you're more like post MVP, post revenue. Even if you've not broken even yet, but at least just see that traction, have that proof of concept that this is a feasible business. It's capable of generating revenue. Then you can raise money from loans. Else, I would advise no. But if you're the kind of person that believes that you believe so well in what you're building, and you know that what's just keeping you from getting from point A to point B is just time, then you can do it. But I'll advise against it. For someone who is studying engineering and is passionate about starting a business or an investment of sorts, with no idea about financials and all. Well, so I never advise any person on a business to start. I always say that I never advise you on what business to start, because advising someone on a business to start is really you're setting the person up for failure. Rather, I would say to you, I'll just help you to get to the point on what business. I'll just help you, walk you through the way, through the questions you should ask yourself, to know what business to start. So the question, if I'm to ask, to help you and understand what business to start, the question, the kind of questions I ask you, uh, uh, what what sector most interests you? What are you most passionate about? What industry fascinates you? What industry excites you to work in? What industry do you have the most expert knowledge that you're very knowledgeable about? You have the domain knowledge, you know everything in that industry, you know every relevant stakeholder, you know everything that works and everything that doesn't work in the industry. Because once you are knowledgeable about an industry, you have a huge chance of succeeding in that industry. It's it's a proven fact. And and I'll ask you, if you're interested in an industry but you don't have that domain knowledge or that domain skills in that industry, does your co-founder or an early employee have that relevant skill, and how are you sure that person is going to stay with you throughout the entire journey? So I wouldn't say this is what you should start. No, I would say, Warren, what are you passionate about? What problem have you experienced, or someone have experienced, and that you're so passionate about solving? What are you passionate about? That passion is what keeps you going, even when everything is going wrong. That passion, it's if you don't have passion, there's a very huge chance that along the line you just drop off and just say, okay, I'm done with this. So it's what are you passionate about? What do you love doing that keeps you away from burning out? And what do you know very well, and what do you know? I usually say this: what is that thing that you can do so well, more than your peers, more than 90% of people in this world? Figure that thing out, and then get to do that thing with without don't do it for free. Now get people to pay for doing that for them. So yeah, that's how I'll help you to figure out what you should start. Collateral free loans. Uh, I believe that every loan has some sort of how do I call it? Some sort of catch. There must be a catch in every loan. If it's a collateral free, then maybe there's a penalty for not paying up. Maybe you go to jail for not paying up. Maybe something happens to you if you don't pay up. You know, but as long as it's loan and you have to pay, during a certain period of time, and it's interest based, even if it's collateral free, as long as they will definitely tell you the catch. If you don't pay a certain amount of, if you don't pay it by some amount of time, we're going to, it's going to affect your credit, and that means that you cannot loan in the future. You cannot do certain things in the future. You can't even buy a car in the future because your credit is all messed up. So I would advise you that even if it's collateral free, there's always a catch, and you should try and understand what that catch is and ask yourself, can you live with the catch in a case when you're not able to pay? If you believe that you can live with the catch, then go ahead.
Such an amazing session it has been, Chidi. You've really dug into the topic, and you've brought out several things I'm sure many of our participants have gleaned from. You're not just speaking textbook knowledge. These are practical tips that you've applied even in your own journey as an entrepreneur, and
I can
we are
hear
really,
you.
really grateful for the the period you've spent with us. This 1 hour, diving into the very deep, I would say, to share this wealth of experience. We have a couple of people here who are saying so many amazing things about your session. I'm sure that after now they would bombard you on Twitter. So, guys, you can go on Twitter and you tweet at Opportunity Dex and also Chidi Nwaogu. Some things you've learned from today's session. Maybe you had an aha moment, right? You could tweet that at Opportunity Dex and at Chidi Nwaogu. Chidi, thank you so much for coming on to today's session on Opportunity Dex Live. Before we go, do you have just one word, right, that you want to give that entrepreneur that is out there who is burning to start up? The idea is in his head, he's burning. He just wants to go out there and he's had access to funding, right? He has access to funding already, but he just wants to run into the business. One word or something just for an entrepreneur like that.
I can't hear you. I don't know why I can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now. Good, I can hear
Okay,
you now. I
great.
couldn't
So
hear you
I
before.
said, all right. I said that we have some of our participants are really coming up with great comments about your session. It's been a wonderful time with you so far. So I said before we go, just one thing. There's an entrepreneur out there who has access to funding already, right? Has access to funding and just wants to rush into the market. What would you advise such an entrepreneur?
Oh, you have funding and you want to go into the market. I would say you should be prepared for anything. You're rather be prepared for the worst, but expect the best. Because mostly the market might be what is amazing on paper is might not be feasible in the real world. I've seen so many ideas that are so amazing on paper. When they explain this to you so clearly, it's really like 100% feasible. But then when you take it to the real world, it breaks down so badly. And sometimes an idea working in a foreign country like in Germany or in the United States does not mean it can work in Nigeria, because I've seen so many ideas, working in the United States. I've seen so many ideas working in Germany, Asia, other parts of the world. But when we brought them to Nigeria, they broke down completely. For example, see Jumia and Konga. This is the same thing that Amazon is doing, and he's like the richest man in the world. But then, how come that these e-commerce startups or e-commerce giants in Africa are struggling, to break even and become profitable? So I would say that once you're, getting into the market, even if you have startup fund, and you're ready to, get into the market, do not overestimate yourself. Do not say I'm going to definitely get it. Have a certain amount of confidence, but when you get, go in with the mindset that anything can happen, but whatever happens, you are ready, to face it. You're ready to to mitigate whatever challenge that you come across. You're ready to break down whatever roadblock you see. Like, do realize that the road is not going to be easy. It's not going to be smooth. It's not going to be a breeze, or a complete blast for you. But the question, you just ask yourself one question. Am I ready to see this through no matter what? And that's the kind of mindset you should have. That, okay, I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm ready to see this through no matter what. And once you have that mindset, going into the industry, no matter what comes your way, you're going to be completely like you're going to completely smash it. It might take you some time. You might sometime lose your passion and want to give up. But but with the mindset that yes, you're going to these things can happen and you're ready to see it through. Yeah, then definitely you set up for success. I always say I always give this quote. It's quite radical, but I always say that as an entrepreneur, you're going to the market, you should dream like a beast. Mean that you should make your dreams one wild. Don't think anything is possible. So dream like a beast. Then I say dream like a beast. Then chase your dreams like a possessed demon. Like, have you seen most of the people that watch thrillers or this crime or all these horror movies? Have you seen when these zombies chase after people? They just chase after them, like, even if they're being shot at, they keep moving. So that's how you should chase your dreams. Like a possessed demon. Even if you're being thrown stones at you, shot at you, always you keep moving. You let nothing stop you, from getting to your target. So dream like a beast, chase your dream like a possessed demon. When you come across roadblocks, you either break them or you bend around them, but make sure that you keep moving. Make sure that whatever you do, you keep moving. That's my advice for you.
Amazing, 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 amazing. I lack words, right, to express the session. It's been super amazing with you, Chidi. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, this is the award-winning Chidi Nwaogu, and I promise you all that he is one of the best materials coming out of Africa, coming out of Nigeria, to the world. So please don't forget, you can tweet at Opportunity Dex on Twitter and also at Chidi Nwaogu 5 on Twitter. The things you've learned today, just tweet at us so that we know we can measure the impact you're making through this session. Chidi, thank you so much. It's been super amazing with you.
You're welcome.
We're glad to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking out time to be with us and to help other entrepreneurs on their own journeys. We wish you all the very best in your endeavors. Thank you so much, Chidi. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.